Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. It is a beautiful day, so we're going to get back on this project. It's been about a week since I worked on it last. It's supposed to get a little bit windy later on, but today we're going to work on sustaining some deck boards first thing this morning, and then while I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm going to work on my trusses, or my floor joists, on my deck, and we'll go from there and see how far we get today. That ain't right. Let's cut these in one. Not that you're ever going to take up your porch at some point in time, but if you do, this is kind of why you don't use the cheapest screw available. And these are probably all in there because they're those green screws, but at the time that they were made, which was probably 12, 15 years ago or more, I'm sure they were rated as a decking screw, but you see how well they hold up. Almost, not, I wouldn't say every single one, but 75% or greater of these they break off when you try to take them out, so they're really not holding much. Once again, if you just left this deck here forever, that's one thing, but they're pretty bad shape. Don't use the cheapest fasteners. I was told at one point in time in my life, and I don't know how accurate this is that it's not that these screws are not exterior rated, is that the new chemicals they put in some of this pressure treated lumber is way more corrosive, and it will eat through some of these screws where it didn't used to. Three of those came out whole. Not a single one of them came out whole. Okay, so my battery's about to go dead, so I might have to get a new battery. But before I do that, just kind of show you my progress here. It's kind of a pain. It's not easy to cut that back right against that wall, if you can see, because with that Sawzall, trying to get right up in that wall, and it's just not. It's hard to do. I initially tried cutting one of these boards with that oscillating saw, and it's possible, but it's just extremely time consuming. Sawzall is much quicker. Kind of leaves an ugly edge, but every bit of this is going to be covered. So I'm going to bring my 1/2-inch sheeting down, and then I'm going to put my paper over the top of that. Actually, I'm going to put my flashing on my sheeting, and it'll drop down. But before I do any of that, I'm going to have to sister on another board here, so when I put these deck boards back, they'll have something to nail back to. So anyway, I'm going to get all this cleaned up, and then I'm going to cut the rest of this back. Starting here, all the way out to the end. So it never fails when you do a gut job, or you start ripping some stuff out and you know you're going to put everything back, or you're going to put new back. You're always going to create work for yourself. It's just the nature of the beast, especially with older stuff. They put some piers in here over this span. This is roughly 8 foot from here to here. I don't know why they chose to put piers on some of them and not the other ones, but whatever. These here are starting to rot out in the middle. This one here is actually rotting out in the middle quite a bit. That one actually over there is in good shape out there on that rim board. So I'll have to do something about this before I start putting this back. This one here, I might just be able to flip it over. But first of all, they didn't mount these joists, these piers correctly. They should have probably notched out 1.5 inches, so it's actually some of the weight is sitting down on the block. The way they've got it, they've just got a couple nails in the side, which over time those nails could rust, and it's not really providing a lot of support. It's just the nails. You need to actually have the pier or the block here provide the support. Same thing in this one. It's not notched out at all. It's just a couple nails. So also, after looking at this closer, this one does have some piers underneath it, but it's the same thing. It's not notched out, which I'm not gonna cut those out. Those shouldn't be rotting as bad as these are, because this is out here without a roof over it. But what I am going to do is get some galvanized lags, and all I have are 3 nails on each one of these, fasten it in. Once again, that's just not a lot of support. I'm going to put some lags, galvanized lags into that to provide some more support. And the reason being is, and this has been here for quite a while, but all your weight from your roof, which is not a lot of roof, but all your weight is on this wall. So now that I've cut this decking out, you know, the decking actually probably did spread some of the load out over, you know, a couple of these joists, but none of these joists are blocked together. But now all this weight, now that I'm going to cut this decking out, all this weight is just going to be on this one joist. which is not a good thing. So that's why I want to lag this as best I can, so it provides a little bit more substance. I might actually put, there are some boards down here in the ground, which is redwood. This is part of the old decking system. I might put some support beams or support scabs underneath from there down to provide a little bit more support. I don't know how much that'll actually do, but it would keep it from a complete failure if that ever happened at some point. But putting these galvanized lags in here and here will help quite a bit with the structure. And then I'm going to end up cutting out all the flooring on that side too, to insulate and to seal, to keep this deck from, or the sunroom from being able to have insects, flies, anything else that wants to come in. I'm wanting to seal it and insulate it all up. So anyway, before I put this back, I'm going to end up having to do something with these piers and end up having to do something with these. So let's get back to work. Let's finish pulling out those last few pieces of decking. So I initially wasn't going to talk about the product that I was going to use, but I just put it on and I'm fairly impressed with it. Once again, I'm not sponsored by any of these products or anything that I use. I'm not sponsored by anybody for that, what it's worth. But this was the brand that I chose when I went to buy this stuff. I wasn't going to pick one particular brand. I was looking mainly at price, and they were ranging anywhere from $30 for a gallon to $60 a gallon. This is about the $30 a gallon product, and I know what you guys are thinking. Usually when you go with the least expensive, I won't call it the cheapest, because when you use the word cheap, you might be thinking of it's a substandard product, but the least expensive product, it's not going to last, it's not going to work very good. I've actually used this brand before in a different product, so that's kind of why I went ahead and chose this. The other product that I used though was the non-UV. This is supposed to be a UV protectant. The main difference that I noticed is that the non-UV was more of an oily, thin like product that you could roll on almost like water. This is thicker, it's almost like got a wax in it, built into it. The odor wasn't quite as strong. These boards here soaked it up pretty good though. I'm going to put a second coat on, I think. Wasn't sure how much to buy. I had initially, I've got some other stuff that I'm going to do on this project at some point, but I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet. But I had 26 deck boards that are roughly 8 foot long, 5.5 inches wide, so that comes out to about 95 board feet. And I only used on the first coat, which it soaked up quite a bit, and I put on quite a bit. I just didn't just dry brush stuff, but it took about a third of the gallon, so I've got roughly 2/3 left, which is pretty good. And typically the second coat that you put on will not absorb quite as much, so I shouldn't actually use that much on the second coats. I also, after reading the directions, it stated that you're supposed to put the second coat on almost immediately after the first coat. It was calling a wet on wet application. So I was going to put the first coat on, let that thoroughly dry before I put the second coat on and work on some other stuff. But because the directions are recommending a second coat almost immediately, I'm going to knock that out. I doubt I'll record that, but I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. And we'll see you on the next little clip. So the one little tidbit that I will add is this stuff reminds me of almost like sunscreen. The texture of it is very similar to sunscreen that you put on yourself. And if you think about it, it's kind of what you're doing. Of course, you know, don't use this as sunscreen. It's not sunscreen, but you're sunscreening your porch is what I'm getting at. You're applying a product that's probably mixed with a few different things, and I'm no expert on this, but it's a product that's mixed with a few different things that is essentially protecting your porch and the wood from the sun, the worst off, and then moisture, obviously. But that was just kind of a tidbit that I thought of whenever I was using this stuff. Second coat is done. It looks pretty good. This product I bought is advertised as clear, which basically means no stain added. It did give it a pretty good rich color, I think. Added to the color a little bit. These were a few of the short boards. And then second coat on all these. Second coat on all these. So basically that is a treated deck board that has aged, dried, aged, cleaned up, sanded, and 2 coats of this product put on it, and it's giving it that color. So one of the questions I think that some people were going to ask is why I chose to use a brush, which there are probably 3 different application processes that you can use. Let me try to get this to widen up just a hair if I can. Maybe it won't. Anyway, brush, roll, or spray on. My personal preference at this point with this product and what I was wanting to do, the application, well, brush is what I chose. Typically a brush, you're not going to waste a lot of product. Roll on, you're going to waste a lot of product. Spray on, you're not going to waste that much product, but it's not going to put, if your product or your board is going to soak up a lot, then it's probably not the best thing to use. Maybe for the second coat, spraying might be okay, but for the first application, I didn't think spraying was going to be a good choice to use. So I chose brush. Brush worked fine. It's obviously the most labor intensive, but it turned out pretty good. And for what it's worth, I bought that gallon, and I still have over half a gallon used, with 26 boards 8 foot long, which equates to about roughly 25 board feet. And there's half a gallon left using a brush at this temperature, and it's probably 55 degrees outside today. It's not warm, it's not cool, it's just intermediate temperature. It's kind of cloudy right now. The other thing definitely that I would think about is if you're wanting to roll on probably be okay, but spraying at this temperature, that stuff is pretty thick, and it recommended not to thin it. And usually when you use a sprayer, you're going to thin it just a tiny bit to get it to run through the sprayer pretty good. So it's another thing to think about, whatever you choose to use. But this worked out for me pretty good, I think. So on to the next project. Two nails, it's literally all that was holding that up here. So I notched both of these out, so the joist will sit on this. You can see that the joist will sit on this now. That'll give it a little bit more support. I got these joists blocked up. They actually stabilized it quite a bit. This joist right here is actually down just a little bit compared to the other ones. But this blocking up will actually help sturdy them. Plus, when you get the flooring back on, that'll help sturdy them up. I've got this sistered up, so it gives me a nailing edge when I put the decking back on. I'm gonna put flashing on here, metal flashing, so it'll go down and over and actually kind of get bent down. So any rain that comes around will roll off that flashing. And then I'm gonna put more paper working up my sheeting. Also got all this done, got it restacked in here. It's starting to rain on me a little bit. I'm gonna wrap up for the day. So got all this done, looks pretty good. 2 coats. So that wraps it for a day, and we'll work on some stuff tomorrow. So I got the deck boards down. They're just basically pinned down. I don't have them fastened all the way. I just wanted to get them spaced out and get them out here. I think we're going to have some sun over the next couple days, so I can get them drying a little bit more. They're still just a tiny bit tacky. Plus I needed to get them off the deck, because if I get the insulation guy to come in, he's going to need everything cleared out to get to do what he needs to do. So I needed to get them out of the way, so I might as well just get them back down. Looks pretty good. You can kind of see this, actually this part of the deck over here is going to get redone eventually too. It's just not a priority at the moment, but that's kind of a contrast between the before and the after. And actually the before over here on this side was way worse than what that is. I'll put a picture in just to kind of show what the before and after looks like, but I think it turned out pretty good. Basically, once again, all I did was flip the boards over and sand them up and reseal them. For in, I flipped them so the holes kind of mismatched with the floor joist, so there was a little, I don't have to reuse the old holes because there were screws in some of the old holes. Plus I think it kind of gives it a little bit of an antique look. Plus the old ends that were out here were pretty worn, so I put them up against this, which is going to get siding. It'll be covered up. The ends that were here kind of got butchered with that Sawzall, so I flipped them and put them out here, which, if you can tell, it looks pretty rough, but I'll take a skill saw and I'll cut a nice clean edge and then seal the ends down here. But I think it turned out pretty good, and it's going to be probably another week or so. I got quite a bit done today, but it's probably going to be a week or so before I get back over here onto this project. But I appreciate everybody watching, and remember, measure twice and cut once.